Welcome to the Big Success Podcast, cutting-edge conversations on business and personal success, as well as how to level up. Here's your host, #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars.
This week on the Big Success Podcast, it's all about wealth. Kevin Whelan, economist, author, founder of Wealthbuilders. You know, he's my co-author on the UK version of the book, The Wealth Coach. And we're going to be discussing the subject of success, but we're also going to be looking at your wealth. So both inside a company, outside a business, what do you do to build wealth? Kevin Whelan is going to teach us about that today. So Kevin, let's dive straight into the subject of success. Here on the Big Success Podcast, it's what we love. What is your definition of success? Like, what is success to you?
Well, success to me is really being able to do exactly what I want to do, when I want to do it, with who I want to do it, whenever I want to do it. So it's all the freedoms all wrapped into one. And if you can pull that off, you're successful. And also you're giving a great role model example to the next generation to follow.
So hang on, you threw a word in there that I really love as part of the success definition, and that is freedom. Why is that a thing for you in the definition?
I think the issue for me of freedom stems from the fact that I was just a terrible, terrible employee. I just can't be told what to do. I'm just such a maverick, hate it completely. Discovered it very early and realized that one of the greatest freedoms is you don't want a boss to tell you what to do. Now, my wife's out of earshot, so that's fine. But other than my wife, nobody tells me what to do. And I like it that way. And it's not being arrogant. It's just being in control of my own destiny, what I want to do. And I just love what I do. So, you know, every day is successful for me because I get to discover new things because of the community we're building around the whole subject of wealth. So they give me little nuggets of discovery. It's almost a new ROI for me, Brad. It's a sort of one new relationship, new opportunity, new idea. And I get that every single day from the community. So keeps me fresh, keeps me going, even though I'm, aging around the years. I've got some sitting mountains on me. I'm feeling good about what I'm doing now, even at my kind of aging years.
Well, let's go back in age then. How old were you, or when did you, or maybe there was a couple of moments, when did you choose to be successful in your life, in wealth, in all areas type thing? When did that happen?
I can remember it exactly. It was the byproduct of the early death of my father. Mm-hmm. So he was 46. He worked on the oil rigs, so North Sea oil, which is, the deep diving for oil in the North Sea. So he unfortunately collapsed and died there. And that's unfortunate. That was a tragedy, but I was 25 and we were peas in a pod. Moved to London, met the woman I wanted to marry in 1985 and realized that if I went the same time as he went, as 46 years of age, I could not possibly save enough on a job. So I took the decision, with her permission, to never trade time for money for the rest of my life. And I made that decision in 1988, the 8th of August, 1988. I think it was a Thursday.
88.
Yeah. And I kind of hung up my employee boots, handed in the notice, and then just set about using my intellect as an economist. So I knew numbers and I knew a bit about things, but very green, probably a little on the gung-ho side at that point, which is definitely one of the lessons I would want to pass on. Look for mentors, seek guidance, don't be arrogant and think you know all the answers. But at 28, I probably thought I did. And of course, I've realized that you don't.
The old line of it's what you learn when you think you know everything that counts.
That's a good one. That's a great quote to have, that one.
So when you look at success, I mean, you're a teacher in this day and age. Do you think that many of the people you teach have still got to make that decision? I mean, where you found it because of external circumstance and with your wife, you found that decision. How do you teach someone else to make the decision?
In a way, the only way you can do that is something, there's a big quote, isn't there, which is an object at rest stays at rest. So we have to find or help people, nudge them to disturb them from that at rest position. And the only way to do that is well, we can allow external events to do that, but that's probably not right.
Yeah.
The way to do that is to show them what life is going to look like if they don't change. And if they do that, you can do your best to give them an alternative view of their life moving forward. And I believe that's best done with complete financial independence, because it opens up the door to all those other freedoms we talked about earlier: freedom of location, freedom of control, freedom of creativity. Whatever is important to you, you can achieve much more when you've got financial independence as the stable security of income, because it allows you the time to be able to do what you want.
Yeah, I love the idea of the nudge in the direction. Yeah. Very, very powerful. So let's discuss success then. In your mindset, how does success happen?
Success happens to me when you're really taking control over your own destiny. So how you do that then is, first of all, to do things that you really love to do, so that you're feeling you're going with the flow. You're never rowing against the current, you're going completely with that. And so you have to really understand a bit about yourself, what you're really keen to do, what you love to do. I'm not so mad about you should follow your passion, because we don't have to be passionate to be successful. But I think if once you become successful, you got the independence you want, you can pursue your passions differently. So the two don't necessarily have to be connected. But I think you must do what you really enjoy doing, and you want to be outstanding at it. There's no point about being mediocre at anything. You want to be outstanding, therefore stand up, stand out for something that you can be exceptional at, and know that you can deliver that. So that's what's important to me about that.
Yeah. So when you think about people going from mediocre to success, how do they make that leap? Or even how did you make that leap in your life?
I think the point about mediocrity is, it's pretty gray, it's pretty drab, and nobody gets excited or inspired. And therefore, you can't really get a following. And when I made the decision to create my business, which is called Wealthbuilders, does what it says on the tin. It's about helping people to become financially independent, completely independent from the need to work in a job or in a business. And, I like your quote as well about having a commercially profitable enterprise that works without you. That's a great quote. That's one that I use all the time, Brad. But I think the point about just wanting to be in control is the key thing. So
brilliant. So let's flip it over then. How does failure teach success?
It's just falling down, isn't it, really? It's recognizing that if you fail, but you can fail quickly, you can make the mistakes and get up and learn very quickly from that, rather than being fearful and then holding yourself back from making any decision. By definition, if you failed at something, you've taken an action. And the very act of taking an action creates momentum and moves you forward. I think so many people I've met, particularly those who are very oriented towards perfection, steely in their outlook, they want all the lights to be green on the freeway before they decide to take off. And you can't do that. You got to move forward and let the momentum and the changing scenery actually be part of the pleasure of it. It's a bit like if you go on holiday, I know you love travel like I love to travel. You don't want to know everything about the city and everything that you want to do. You can't plan it to the nth degree. Part of the joy is getting lost. Part of the joy is making mistakes and feeling, wow, that was great. I learned something about myself, and I learned something about what I'm doing and how I can teach that better by making those mistakes. And so I enjoy making mistakes. I think it's all part of it.
Brilliant. I love that. I love that philosophy, and applying it to travel is very, very powerful. Let's take a break. We're going to be back with Kevin Whelan. We're going to get into the subject of wealth, and we're going to dive deep into how you be successful at wealth.
It's a fact. You'll never get rich by just working for a living. The only sure way to achieve real wealth and that freedom it buys is by letting your investments work for you. And as Brad Sugars proves in The Real Estate Coach, the quickest and safest route to that kind of passive income it takes to live the dream is real estate investment.
You're back. I'm Brad Sugars. This is the Big Success Podcast. We are with Kevin Whelan. He is not just an economist. He's an author and founder of Wealthbuilders. He teaches on the subject of money. So, Kevin, answer me this one. How do you get to be successful with money?
Well, that's all about understanding a key definition, which is an asset. So not an economic definition. I'm not going to bore people with accountancy stuff. No grayness, no dreariness here. We're talking about an asset is something you own that is not you. It puts money in your bank account while you're asleep. And that money can pass to good causes or your family, whatever you want to do. The money shows up even if you don't. And so the key is understanding that there are only a handful, 7 in my IP. So my book called The 7 Pillars of Wealth is about 7 and only 7 assets that you can own or control to build your wealth. So first of all, it's understanding that, getting the context of the landscape. You can't really set up, we talked about travel earlier on before the break. You can't set off on a travel journey unless you do a bit of GPSing and knowing where you are right now. And I think the context of understanding the 7 assets and how you can bring each of those into your life. Look, we're in a very uncertain time right now. We're seeing that in the US and the UK. There's an economic storm brewing. And the more you can provide secure revenue streams, multiple streams of recurring income, you're building diversification, you're building a financial fortress around you that you can stay buffeted from the economic winds that blow on us, because they're going to blow and they're blowing hard and they're always coming from different directions. So the key then to me is understanding how to build assets instead of trading time for money, which is what so many people do.
Yeah. So let's talk about those 7 asset classes. Give me a list. What's the 7?
Okay. So most people have 3. They have a home they live in, which doesn't create an income, but it potentially could. They've got a pension or a superannuation or some other word, but it means a pension. And thirdly, they've got some investments, probably in the stock market or cash. Most people, that's all they got. You cannot be financially independent from there, because mostly you're out of control and the market is going up and down like a roller coaster ride, and you're just hanging on, hoping it all's going to work out, but it doesn't. The other 4, the entrepreneurial pillars, which I'm sure you resonate with, Brad. First of all, number 4 then is creating a portfolio of property or real estate that generates a rental income that you can rely on. Number 5, having a business that works without you. And I love the ActionCOACH philosophy and your philosophy on that. The 6th is building intellectual property, creating a revenue stream from the very ideas you've created in books or courses or memberships or subscriptions. And my favorite of all, I love the sound of it, royalties. I mean, even just sounds sexy, doesn't it? Royalties, love that. So you can get royalties. And the 7th is joint ventures and collaborations. I think with the world being uncertain, people craving community, and the community and people working together with different aspects of life, different ways of looking at things. I love the collaboration that we're creating in the UK to allow people to work together to create things that they couldn't possibly create on their own by bringing the power of those different dynamics together. So they're the 7. And as long as you're holding a combination of those, and everybody's different in the way they do that. And if we take real estate, there's probably 20 different strategies that you could apply in real estate. So we don't get into the detail of that, but within each pillar, as we call them, 7 pillars of wealth, there are multiple strategies that you can use, deploy, learn, and practically do something. Even if you're limited in time and you're trading time for money or your job or your business, you can do something. And we believe anybody can create wealth with a little bit of income or a little bit of capital and a few hours a month. That's all it takes.
I want to dive into one of them, and that's the intellectual property one, because I don't think people really value what they know anywhere to the level with which they could or should. What's the keys to success? How do you turn your intellectual property into wealth?
That's a real tough one, because as you said, most people are failing to recognize the mountain of value they're standing on that's right under their feet, because they're always looking north, south, and east and west for the solution. They're not looking right where they are. So, the way we try and do that, when we're asking questions about whether there's intellectual property, everybody's got it because they've got something that they're good at.
Yeah, you're a salesperson. You've learned all about sales. You're a marketer. You've learned all about marketing. You're a hairdresser. You've learned all about hairdressing. You can teach that stuff.
You didn't need to do about the hair thing with me there, Brad. You get the point. You're great at something, or if you're not sure and you're a bit introspective, you're a bit insular, maybe you could ask somebody else, what do you think I'm good at? Or maybe your boss has told you, or you've had a recommendation. And certainly with social media these days, we're getting testimonials and LinkedIn recommendations and endorsements. So it doesn't take long to find out what you're really good at. Then how do you become great at that? And then how do you teach that? Once you've mastered something, you can teach it. And as soon as you teach, you get the authority to be able to create intellectual property for real, which is where the word author comes from, the stem of the author. Authority leads to that. So you can create it in so many ways. Obviously not as many as successful as you with the franchise and the ActionCOACH franchise and many other things you've done.
Well,
but
that's again,
though, isn't it?
Just intellectual property. I was with a buddy of mine the other day, and he's great at grilling. That's what he does. Now, crazily enough, I started talking to him about his YouTube channel, and then he starts telling me how many tens of thousands of dollars a month YouTube pays him for his YouTube videos on grilling, doing the thing that he loves. I'm like, seriously, dude, no wonder you're getting heavier, because look at that, you're grilling every day. But that intellectual property, Kevin, and I really love that you highlight that. So next area of success, how do we create wealth through a business?
That's a great one. The issue there, I think, from my perspective, slightly different to yours, but very much similar, that I think there's a power in the UK. We have a power socket, which has got 3 points. In the US, it's 2, right? But I always talk about the three pin plug, the 3 things that need to work together to be able to create a hugely valuable business. Number 1, be outstanding in your niche. Make sure that what you do, you're absolutely brilliant at. In the UK, we call it bloody brilliant at it. Right. Number two, can you create recurring income from the business? What is it that you can do in the business that will automatically ship, automatically deliver a product, automatically deliver a service? Create some form of ongoing recurring revenue that's predictable, because that creates more value, because an acquirer of a business is seeking predictability more than anything else. So if you can do that. And number 3, if the business can work without you, and that's the leverage of systems and people and process. And if you combine all 3, you can create immensely more valuable businesses that can sell for multiples of a business that's simply trading time for money. So looking inside a business with coaches, and work very much with coaches to help them do that on the inside of the business. But I focus mainly on how do you build your wealth as you build your business. Don't wait to sell the business and then hope you sell it and your health works. What if you can create wealth as you grow your business from the profit, so you can ring fence that profit and flex those decision-making muscles around wealth, so that if you do get a big check, you know exactly what you're doing with it, and you're involving your family in that as well. So it's not just dad sold the business, mum sold the business, and then all of a sudden it's too late, they die soon, and the kids don't know anything that's going on. So bring the whole family into the process early on.
Brilliant. So speaking of family, wealth, when I wrote the Wealth Coach, and when you and I worked on it for the UK version, it's a lot about passing that knowledge on to kids. First things first, though, you got to get the knowledge to pass it on to your kids. But what are some of the key success secrets to helping our kids become successful with money and wealth?
I think kids are sponges. They absorb everything. So instead of money being taboo, we want money to be to do. We want to have tables where there's a no phone zone. There's no electronic gadgetry allowed. We're having conversation. We're getting involved in if you've got real estate, take them on experiences so they can see the property. Get them to identify ways they could even be earning a little bit, so that they can see that they can create value, and help them share some of that value in terms of giving back to other people, to society, whatever they're interested in. You can link a money experience to that. That's how I would suggest people start that process.
Brilliant. You're on the Big Success Podcast. I'm Brad Sugars, your host. We're with Kevin Whelan. We'll be back in a moment to talk about scaling up, to really talk about going massive, not just good. Let's go great.
Kevin is an economist, author, and founder of Wealthbuilders, which helps business owners create multiple streams of recurring income both inside and outside of the company. Co-author with Brad Sugars on the UK edition of The Wealth Coach, Kevin is one of the UK's leading experts and authorities on creating sustainable wealth.
Welcome back to Big Success. We're going to go into the good being the enemy of great. Kevin, how does someone dream big? Like, not just, and maybe even how did you determine how you got to go massive rather than just going good, I guess?
I think the key issue for me is understanding that I think it's true in the UK and the US that somewhere around 95% of the population will never make it to financial independence. And I was horrified by those numbers. And as an individual, you can only reach so many people on your own. So you can't really make a dent in the financial security and ultimately the independence of a large number of people if you just teach a handful of people who are in your direct line of sight. You have to create the systems and the processes to allow the intellectual property to get out there, and then to get other people to be able to share that and hold people to account. So that's using systems and people to enable the scale of that so that we can affect hundreds of thousands of people. And even if we only make 6% of the population financially independent, the impact is massive. How I imagine it, Brad, is I'm a big soccer fan in the UK. And I come from a town in the north, which is Newcastle, and and it's got a capacity in the football ground of 50,000.
Yeah.
My first task as a business owner in wealth is to get 50,000 people financially independent. And imagine I'm talking to them in the stadium and saying, right, to go out and infect other people, help somebody else become more financially independent, give them a lesson, give them a tip. So it's just a feeling of having a roar of people trying to help somebody else so that the word gets out, and almost create a tribe of people trying to do that. That's how I visualize it.
Yeah. If good is the enemy of great, and in wealth, I think this is very true. People get to a point, and I nicknamed it, for want of a better term, fat and happy. Like they get to, you know what, I'm good. I got the bills paid, things are good. I don't need to go for wealth. Is there a way to get people to say, okay, you should go to wealth? Or is it, as a coach of mine once said, don't try and teach the pig to sing. It annoys the pig and it wastes your time. Can you get people into that?
I think people will get into that when they understand that, for the most part, if they're successful at living, if they're successful at making income from a job or from a business, that in the end, that is temporary. In the end, the only way to be able to leave a fantastic legacy is to create value and values in the kids and in the next generation that mean you become not fat and happy and just allow the money around you, but to become a steward of that money, to recognize you don't really own anything. If you really own assets, they're going to outlive you. So you might as well become a steward and show other people and pass the baton on to others. And then when you see that happening, and we get people to create their own family as a mini wealth business, a bit like, I suppose, the big rich Rockefeller families, and create what would you call them, family offices?
The family office,
How you could create almost like a mini family office where you are the pioneer of the idea. And then you're creating rules that allow you to take your family on trips, all expenses paid, rules for them to have money when they grow their family, when they get married, when they buy their first home. And when you can see the impact you're having, not just in this generation, but the one after that, and the one after that, people will change their mind, and they'll do so much more for that than they'll do for themselves.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. I'm going to dive into the quick fire round around success. We're going to take a look at multiple areas of success. How do you be successful at setting goals?
Make them easier to achieve at the start so you can take baby steps and then you can allow those baby steps to turn into momentum.
Yeah, momentum is a big part of that. What about personal development, self-development? How do you be successful at developing you?
Everybody needs a checkup from the neck up from time to time, right? We do an MOT on our cars. We should be doing it for ourselves. And personal development is really giving permission for all the other assets to work, because without the person controlling and thinking about the assets, nothing else will happen. So the primary focus, of course, is develop self and knowledge of self. So couldn't agree with you more on that one, Brad.
What about having success when it comes to the subject of health?
Well, if you're an unhealthy person, you're not really going to enjoy the longevity of what wealth can really bring. So I think paying attention to health is a key aspect of that. And so little is talked about health and wealth being coexisting in a combination. That's something I'm looking into to try and see if we can make that more effective in the UK. I haven't seen that really worked out well. It's almost like two separate strands of philosophy. Yeah. And I think there'd be a great win for somebody who could be outstanding in that field. I couldn't lay claim to the outstanding health field, but I wouldn't mind working with somebody who is. So maybe there's a bit of IP for someone in the UK to reach out.
Yeah, we could write a book together and we'd call it Wealthy, spelled WHEA. So it's like healthy. So you find the health person, and we'll write that book, all three of us together. I think it'll be fun. How about relationships?
What a cool idea. I'll give you the credit for that one.
Excellent. Well, now that it's recorded, I have proof that I came up with it. There you go. How about relationships? What's the keys to successful relationships, both personal and business?
That's a great question. And I think the answer to that is always see things from the other person's point of view. Because, in business, we always talk about win-win, which means always looking at the other side. If you're trying to create longevity of relationships, you always have to pay attention to the other side's outcome. And for so many people in relationships, it's selfishness that gets in the way, when I think it's selflessness that shows the greatest power in all aspects of life. All the people we laud as heroes have shown themselves, for the most part, to be selfless, not selfish.
So last one, how do you have success at fun, like vacations, enjoying yourself?
Crumbs. I mean, we talked about travel already 3 times, right? So one of the key, I'm a foodie, I'm a winey. I don't mean whining, but I love fine wine. I study it. It's a fascination of mine. So all of those things are priceless in terms of the enrichment of the experience. So having fun, doing what you want to do. For me, I know what I love to do, but for anybody, it's going to cost money to do those things. It's going to take time to do those things. So being financially wealthy allows you to do anything you want to do on your own terms. So I think the whole thing just works very seamlessly together.
Brilliant. Final question. What is the best advice you ever got on success, or the best quote you ever heard on success?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would probably take a leaf out of Warren Buffett's book there, which is, if you don't find a way, or if you, get the exact quote now, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work till you die.
Simply put. Kevin Whelan, thanks for being on the Big Success Podcast. You're here with Brad Sugars. We're going to be back again next week. Keep tuning in. Keep subscribing. We'll be back helping you gain more success.
You've been listening to the Big Success Podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.